Welcome to Sunrise Life, the podcast where we have conversations with freelance models. And today I have Liv Sage on the line. Say hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for doing this with me today. I'm excited.
Me too. So it'll be great.
Yeah, and right now you're basing out of Seattle, aren't you?
Yeah, I moved to Seattle last September. I had spent a year in Oklahoma, approximately. I lived in New York City before that, and now I'm on the West Coast, which is a little strange.
It's strange? Like, in what way?
I always sort of felt like I was going to be on the East Coast for the rest of my life. And, when COVID happened in New York City, I sort of started reconsidering that and ended up just leaving New York in 2022. And overall, I'm pretty happy that I'm not in New York City anymore. There's a lot of really nice things about living on the West Coast. There are a few strange things. I think I was the East Coast felt more normal to me, maybe because I was raised by a guy from Boston, but now I'm out here. The weather's better. The weather is way better out here. So that's nice.
Yeah, I like that you said that, because almost every time I introduce myself as somebody who grew up in Seattle, almost every person says, oh, it rains a lot there. There's terrible weather. And I'm like, I think it used to rain more, but it's actually not that bad.
The rain here is also different. I feel like in New York, and especially in Oklahoma, when it does rain, it pours and it just sort of drizzles. Most people here don't even carry an umbrella. So it's like, okay, it's raining, but I think people imagine downpour constantly.
Yeah.
That's really not what's happening.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because the first time that I was in New York, I was 15, and it was like a long layover with my family, and we were coming back from Mexico or something, so nobody had any sweaters. Oh yeah, we'll just walk around. New York's cool. And it rained so hard that it hurt. And I was flabbergasted. I was like, I thought Seattle was rainy. It's not rainy at all in Seattle. I am getting pummeled by this New York rain.
Yeah, it's like, I don't feel as cold here. It doesn't feel as chilled to the bone when it rains on you. Out there, it does. It's like, I feel like I'm going to get ill.
Yeah.
The air quality is bad. You're getting all rained on. It feels really dirty. It's a really gross feeling. So,
yeah,
it's much nicer out here. I mean, it's just cloudy. I can understand if someone is really concerned about their vitamin D intake. Maybe Seattle is not for you.
Totally.
What is that thing that they talk about? I saw this on Twitter a long time ago, where it's something like, why are there so many serial killers in the Pacific Northwest?
Yeah.
And one of them was seasonal affective disorder and poor intake of vitamin D.
I've thought that too, because it is odd that there's so many serial killers from Seattle. And this actually has been brought up on the podcast before, actually, oddly. But yeah, that's my theory as well, is that people are depressed because of the lack of sun.
Well, there's that, and then it's the fact, I mean, this sounds really morbid, but decomposition is probably great up here because so many things are growing. It doesn't ever freeze. It's not too dry. It's always wet. So hiding a body out in the mud, it's probably going to decompose here very quickly. Where if you dump a body in Arizona, it's just going to sort of sit there and petrify, right?
Oh, that puts an extra layer to premeditation.
I mean, it's kind of icky to think about, I suppose, and also the highway system up here. I think the I-5 goes so far and, north and south, and then it connects to a lot of different freeways. I'm sure that has some sort of effect.
Well, I feel like we're giving tips to potential serial killer.
I know that already, right? I'm sure that someone has a big breakdown on what is it, the Green River Killer, Ted Bundy, all these dudes. Somebody has to have done a breakdown on this, right?
I'm sure some people are really, really obsessed with serial killers. It is a fascinating. When I say fascinating, I don't mean great. I mean an interesting fucked up way to be a human, I suppose.
Yeah, I think there's just something wrong with their brain chemistry when they're doing things like that. But people
Sure.
get really obsessed with it. I think people have always been obsessed with like evil in that way because I think that they might not understand it, or it's just so foreign, or just being afraid. I think people kind of enjoy like the thrill of those things from inside the safety of their own home.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I doubt that people I wonder if people in really impoverished regions of the world are obsessed with serial killers. I bet they're not.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, if you're like super comfortable, maybe your mind just wanders, to those weird edges of what is deemed acceptable to even think about. But if you are living in a constant state of survival, I'm sure that being fascinated by serial killers is probably the furthest thing from your mind.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to do a little reroute.
Yeah.
I'm sure the listeners would also like to hear more about you. Could you explain how you first got into modeling, and then in a nutshell, how your career has progressed to lead you to where you are now?
Around 2015, I was working in libraries and research, and at the time I was in grad school. I didn't really love my job. I didn't mind the job, but I didn't love the job. And then I found out that potentially, at least in the geographic area I was in, which is Ohio, it probably wasn't going to pay very well after I got out of grad school. And the money aspect was, sort of concerning considering how much debt that you can take on in grad school. Fortunately, I wasn't taking on a ton of it, but I was bored. Coupled with the monetary stuff, I decided maybe I should just try out some new things. I had been doing photography. I was posting self-portraits on Instagram at the time, very occasionally. I mostly posted landscape photos, little still life photos. But occasionally I would post a photo of myself, and a bunch of photographers started following me for some reason. And a few of them asked if I would pose for them. Eventually I agreed, and that's kind of how I got started. About 3 months later, it was my full-time income.
Wow.
Yeah.
That happened fast.
Yeah, it did. I think I had my first nude shoot ever in September 2015. I had done clothes stuff prior to that. So I did that shoot, and then the very beginning of January, I did my first real modeling trip to San Francisco, and it was my full-time income, basically starting that. So,
wow.
Yeah. So it happened pretty quickly. Yeah.
The library was not going to cut it, and so you became a freelance art model. That's amazing.
I mean, I might still go back to library work in the future, so I haven't really. I'm sort of in that stage right now. I'm deciding what I'd like to do next because, it's been really great. I've had a lot of really good experiences, but I'm sort of ready for the next stage of my life at this point, and I'm currently figuring that out and deciding what I want to do next. And I'm probably going to go back to doing some sort of librarian work or research. So.
That's cool. So you were taking landscapes and photographing other things and sharing those, and your self-portraits are what got your name out and drew photographers to want to hire you.
Yeah, I posted a few self-portraits, but then it's I remember the photo that I posted. It was I was using my iPhone 4. I think it was a 4. And I posted a photo of my face one day, and people started messaging me, which I found kind of weird at the time. I still find it a little strange that I posted one photo of my face and people started bothering me, but it's been fine. So
something that I am aware of about your modeling is that you seem to be very authentic to yourself, and I don't think I've ever seen a photo of you that I'm like, oh yeah, that photographer had a stupid idea with Liv, that's not her. Like, I always feel like photos of you that I see seem to be like within your brand or your vibe or whatever a good way to call it is.
I'm sure there are some pretty stupid photos of me out there. I can't try to think. I mean, past 2016, not really. So I think that if they are there, they're kind of they've sunk into the ether of the internet somewhere, thankfully.
Yeah.
But that is definitely on purpose. I get approached with stupid ideas. Less so now. Maybe I'm too old for stupid ideas now. I don't really know. I know when I was in my 20s, I got approached a lot more with really dumb ideas, but it's been a while. But I turned down a lot of work over the years, and sometimes I think about that. I'm like, wow, I could have made a lot more money. But I also always thought, like, at a certain point, I want to go back to working potentially like a normal job, and a normal job, like
Right.
office or something. And I feel like the nudity alone is kind of like a thing that can potentially hurt you. I think less so now and less so in certain areas of the country, like the coastlines. But I didn't really want there to be a huge amount of images of me that I just don't like, partially for that reason, because I'm like, well, how am I, like, what if somebody looks me up on the internet and like there's me like dressed as like a reindeer, like,
Yeah.
which is fine. Like, it's you can make a lot of money dressing up as a reindeer at Christmas time, I think. And if I wasn't gonna maybe go back to like the real world or whatever, maybe I wouldn't have cared so much. But maybe I just don't have, I think I have an okay sense of humor about things, but maybe it's just not that good. Like, I fail to see the humor in me, and I think that sometimes if you could like see the humor and like, oh man, this is so dumb, it makes it easier to do. And I think that my patience threshold just isn't that high. And maybe I'm also a bad actress, which is probably also true.
Yeah.
I'm not a good actress, actually, so like I can say that. I'm not a good actress. My facial expressions will give it away. So even if somebody tried to hire me for that, I would be really bad at it.
Yeah.
So
I've definitely signed up for a lot of stuff that was not me, or that I did think was stupid, or that I'd kind of cringed at, or that like I probably shouldn't have done. But I mean, we all learn in different ways, right? For me, it was the hard way.
I mean, I'm trying to think, like, maybe I don't know, like, I completely get taking shoots like that. I've had girls stay with me in the past when they were in whatever city I lived in working, and they would describe the photo shoot they're about to go on, and it was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Like, I remember someone describing to me some guy in Baltimore, I think, and he had like some weird snake fetish, and he had these like, but he didn't have real snakes. She was supposed to like dress up in a bikini, and then these big plushy snakes would strangle her.
Oh my god, I worked for that guy. He had an octopus too, and his thing was fighting with the octopus, or fighting with the snakes, or making it look like the snake is like wrapping itself around you and killing you.
Oh, yeah, I was just sitting there in my living room. I remember thinking, okay, like,
Yeah.
how did he come up with that? And where do you buy stuffed animals? Like, I mean, you could probably buy anything. I don't know. I don't know. You can probably buy pretty much anything on the internet
For
these
sure.
days. So, I was like, oh, like, I hope that goes well.
Yeah.
I mean, I heard he was safe. I heard it was like safe, and I heard he was like not mean. So
Yeah, he was super, super nice. And I don't think it was Baltimore. It was somewhere in Pennsylvania, like in between. in between major towns. He was like in the middle of nowhere town in Pennsylvania. But
What
I
is
mean,
it with nowhere towns in Pennsylvania?
yeah,
They have, like some of the weirdest people I've ever seen seem to live out there.
yeah. I mean, even today, like if I happen to be driving through his town, I might fight with his snake again. I'm a stuffed snake, like it was fun. But
Yeah.
I like at the same time, it's like if I tell somebody that I'm a freelance model and they look me up and that's at the top of the Google search, I'm probably gonna be embarrassed,
Yeah. Yeah. I've always like, I mean, fortunately, it seems like that stuff doesn't come up
Yeah.
in the algorithm. Yeah.
It
Which is
depends.
good.
It depends on where they posted it and how good they are at like getting their work out there, or if it I don't know, like I've had stuff pop up at the top of Google that was ranking highly because they posted it on YouPick or something and they got a lot of clicks, and then somebody put it on a Pinterest board and it's all over, getting spread across the internet via link sharing or something like that. And that's a lot of the stuff that's at the top of the search is not what I want to be at the top of the search always.
Yeah. I don't mind mine. It's just mostly basic portraits of me. What's weird to me is how old a lot of them are. I'm like, well, that's really old. Why is that still there?
I'm hearing that like search engine optimization and like getting your like images or links to the top of Google search is less of a thing now because of social media.
That, and also I think people are pretty fed up with Google. I mean, I can't stand Google.
Yeah.
I think they are awful. And I mean, it doesn't even really function very well as a search engine at this point. I mean, it's all fake pages. Nobody, if you look up any basic question on Google now, they're just going to send you to like the top 50 results are just people who paid to be there.
Yeah.
You're never even going to get your question answered. You have to go to Reddit, which is just even more, it's really obnoxious to me that I'm like, okay, so I have to go on Reddit to get an answer to a basic question. I really don't want to have to go on Reddit.
Yeah, where you're finding like, yeah, I find that a lot too when I'm trying to get the answer to something. If it's got to be an advertisement if it's in the top 50 answers on Google, but somebody that's actually talking about your question and talked about it on Reddit somewhere. Interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe I should use
Reddit. I mean, any question you type into Google, just put Reddit at the end of it and you'll get a better answer. Although I've heard that even that is getting messed up
probably
now, but who knows? Like, it still works better than using Google for it at this point.
Yeah. Social media, just people are on social media more than they are on their computers now. Like the screen time on a phone has greatly surpassed what people do like when they're on a computer. So I guess people Google stuff on their computer too, but probably not as much if they have like Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever.
Yeah, I do wonder, like, if you have, how many people even have an actual desktop computer? At most people have a laptop.
Laptop, yeah, right. Right, yeah, I have a laptop. That's right. I don't have an old school desktop.
Yeah, a lot of the people I know who do have a old school desktop, it's because they need a lot of storage space or they work in tech, and that's fine. But I think most of us are just sort of on the internet with our phones. Like when I travel for work, I don't take my computer with me. I just have my phone.
That's great. I always take mine, but I have all these self-imposed deadlines on editing stuff as well. So I always take
I need to be better about that actually, but I'm really bad about that stuff.
So I have this bit on my podcast that I call the photo shoot fail of the week. I want to take a short little break to tell you about Model Society.
ModelSociety.com is a website dedicated to featuring figurative fine art photography for models and photographers. What makes them different than other portfolio hosting websites is that some of those other websites will still host kind of tacky photography or exploitative photos. Model Society screens all of their contributors for quality and authenticity. So you only get the best of the best on there. If you're not a photographer or model, you can still enjoy and appreciate Model Society because they also have newsletters and magazines featuring their best work and new articles each week. Check it out, modelsociety.com. I will also include a link to Model Society in the show notes. All right, now back to our show.
Can you describe a crazy story that you've had experience over the course of your modeling?
I was up late last night, racking my brain, trying to think of this in answer to this question. And I'm sure there is one. Like, I have crazy things. Like, I don't know if it would be crazy, but like, I remember posing in front of waterfalls in Norway, or hiking to like the top of some mountain or something like that. But I feel like that's not crazy as much as like pretty, fascinating and exciting. But I don't have a lot of crazy shoot experiences or anything that really pops into my head. And I think it's because I just cancel photo shoots if it sounds stupid.
Yeah.
If it just sounds really ridiculous to me, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Can you give me an example of something that somebody suggested and you were like, nah, I'm not doing the shoot?
I had someone contact me once in Texas, and it was funny because he mentioned another model, and he goes, she just turned me down. Let's see what you say. And it was someone who had similar standards to me in terms of what kind of photo shoots she'll take. So I was like, oh, yeah, great. I'm probably going to say no to this too. He basically wanted me to dress up in, what are these, little Daisy Duke shorts and like a cow. He asked me if I had a cowgirl outfit, which I did not. Like, does someone just have that on hand? Like, I don't know. In any case, I was like, okay. And then he goes, I want you to pose with knives and guns in front of your, I don't remember the term he used, but basically in front of your genitals. I want you to have these things right in front of it and do spread eagle poses. Like, and then he says at the end, please give me your special last minute discount rate.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not kidding you.
Oh my God.
I actually think you worked with this person.
I probably did.
Hopefully he didn't ask you that.
So I had requests like that too. And it's kind of like one of those things where for me, like when I started modeling, I was just like, okay, as long as you're not a serial killer, I'll probably work with you. And I kind of functioned like that for the first 7 or 8 years of my traveling modeling. Like I had a really, really high tolerance for weird shit. But then over time, like I just started to get jaded, and I got sober at 24, and people still wanted me to pose with wine glasses and shot glasses and stuff like that. And I feel like for me, it takes me quite a while to develop this sense of, oh, I am not comfortable with this. I don't want to do it, like when people ask, the gun thing is always weird. I'm like, okay, what's the purpose of me? Is there a storyline, Like, I wouldn't say that I'm super anti-guns altogether, but I'm like, why do you want me to pose with it? Is it because you want to show off your gun and you want me to be just hot chick with their boobs out holding a gun? Or like, is there an actual concept that we're going for here? And usually there's not,
There's usually not a concept.
Yeah.
It's funny because I'm actually very pro Second Amendment, very much so, but I'm pretty much won't pose with guns. I think I've done it exactly one time the entire time I've been modeling, and it was for a female photographer, and it was like this vintage gun in a certain setting, and it was like, okay, yeah, I feel okay with this.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like I'll pose with alcohol, for example, like, and I understand not posing with alcohol, but I won't pose in the way that most people want to photograph you with alcohol. So, like, I'll pose with a glass of wine or something, but I'm not going to pretend to binge drink.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, what's the message here? And are you going to be using me as some kind of a poster child for your agenda or for your politics or whatever? Because that's the last thing I want, you know?
I try to keep my political stuff separate. Like, I don't want to do anything overtly political on my own page. I understand if other models do, not a problem, but I just don't. And I had people approaching me like in 2016 and 2020. It's like they want you to wear like the t-shirt of their preferred candidate. It's like, I'm not going to wear.
Oh, give me a break.
It's like, I'm not wearing either of those. Sorry. Like, it's like, well, who are you voting for? It's like, how about we just don't do that?
Yeah. I can see that being one that you would say no to for sure. I did a photo shoot once wearing a Broncos jersey. And I don't care. Like, the reason I picked that one, there was like a box of jerseys, and he's like, okay, we're going to be posing on the green grass. Which one do you want to wear? And I'm like, oh, this one has orange and it looks good with the green grass. Yeah. And so that ended up on the cover of some like indie Mad Cloud magazine, like some glamour magazine. And I shared the tear sheet, and all of my friends from Seattle were super pissed because apparently the Broncos had just beat the Seahawks in like the Super Bowl or something like that. And it was around that time, and I was like, oh shit, I just pissed off my home team or whatever. So
I just don't know how that wouldn't even register to me that, okay, yeah. You know, I didn't realize till moving here how much people actually cared about their football team.
Yeah, in Seattle, it does seem like people are very into their Seahawks. Seahawks is definitely more popular than the Mariners or I don't know. I think they have a soccer team now. Like,
I know there's the Seattle Kraken. Is that hockey?
Mm-hmm. It's hockey.
Yeah. Okay. I don't watch sports. I don't really.
Neither.
If someone asked me, here's something that's probably like super unpopular to say. If somebody asked me like, oh, what sports team do you support? I would probably just choose the ones my dad supports. Just like, but then I would have to say like, oh, well, which one? It's like, oh, the Patriots. And everybody gets mad if you say the Patriots.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've had so many people. It's like, I mean, I don't really care. I just, you know, like if you made me care,
yeah,
which I can't, but sure.
And then I'll root for the team that you hate, just so that you can stop talking to me about it.
It's always bad if you go into any sort of restaurant here and it's a game day and you didn't know it was a game day, because how am I supposed to know what days they play football? I don't pay attention to that.
So in Ohio or Oklahoma or other places that you lived, was it not like that?
Well, I guess Ohio was like that. Oh, yeah. I mean, I went to Ohio State. Yeah, I have a college degree from the Ohio State University, and there's definitely a big football thing there. I never went to a game, which in hindsight, I kind of think about. I'm like, maybe I should have just gone to an Ohio State game. I went to school there, but I never did. Yeah,
You know?
they always seem really loud.
Yeah, loud, and I guess I wasn't exposed to sports growing up. My dad was always watching the news. He never watched sports in the house, so I wasn't exposed to it. So when I, grew up and other people wanted to watch it all of a sudden, I was like, what's all this?
Yeah. I saw sports a lot because my dad was a huge Patriots fan. He was a college hockey player. If my brother played sports, I played some sports when I was younger, but I didn't like it. There's also something about being 4'11" and playing any sort of contact sport where when you get older, and most girls are going to be around 5'4" to 5'8", it seems like, when they're playing sports. And it's like, I really don't need someone who's 5'6", 100 30 pounds running right into me.
You know, I actually forgot that you're 5'11". That's really cool. Sorry, 4'11". That's what I meant. I get used to the phrase.
Fine. Yeah, I'm very short, very small.
And your nickname online for a while was a small woman. Is that right?
Yeah, it still is my Instagram handle.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, and I did that. I thought it was kind of like funny when I was younger, and I think about it now, and I'm like, I can't change it now. But I mean, in a way, it's okay because sometimes if I show up to shoots and someone hired me off Instagram and didn't look at my website, and then I show up and they're looking at me and they're like, well, I guess that was accurate. You'll fit on the backdrop really well. It's like, yeah, very fat.
Yeah? Has your height ever affected any of your shoots?
Definitely. Some people don't realize that you probably should try to get on my level when you're photographing me, or like sit on a stool or something, because if you photograph down at me, I will look like a bobblehead.
Yeah.
It looks a little funny. Or the fact that it's like I can't go, like, oh, you know, all these workshops that they do now. I can't really effectively go to workshops like that and do any sort of group posing because I just look like the really short one.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I'm like the height, my eyes are like at the height of everyone's boobs or something. And it's a really weird look.
Some people are into that. That tall girl, short girl thing.
And usually they're not very good photographers, if I'm quite honest.
Yeah, that is also true. I'm not that much taller than you. I'm just under 5'2".
Okay, so you're really small. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. I'm small, not quite as small as you, but yeah. So I can sort of relate. Often I show up at shoots and people say, "Wow, you look a lot taller in your pictures," because I only post pictures where somebody took a good angle, and the good angle is almost always from a lower perspective, right?
Mm-hmm. Or I hate when I've worked with people before, and one of my personal pet peeves is if we're doing like an outdoor nude shoot and it's like very standard art nudes, and the person shows up and they've always brought like a wide angle lens or whatever, and then they show up and they're like, well, today I didn't bring that. I'm like, oh good. That's lovely. I'm gonna look short in every single picture because that's how you photograph people, and inevitably I do. I look really short. And I just don't use the photos. But it's interesting how people will say, even to me, like, oh, you really can't tell how short you are in your pictures. And I'm like, that's me choosing certain pictures, if I'm honest.
Yeah. I mean,
I actually kind of don't like full body that show like my full legs standing up. I've always been a little weird about photos like that if they're not composed really well.
I know what you mean. Yeah, like especially if they're standing up and shooting down onto you. Like unless there's like a really good compositional reason for that, like get down on your knee. You know?
Yeah. I feel bad. Some of them maybe like some photographers are quite a bit older, so perhaps it's hard for them to get down on one knee, which is fine. But then I do try to do more like reclining poses or sitting, and I feel like they look better.
This is the anguish of being a model who's modeled for more than a few years. We're just too aware, you know?
Yeah, I've seen so many photos of myself that I've seen, you know, all the different angles, and I know exactly what something's going to look like. And I do feel like when we're posing for someone and they are doing a certain thing that you know isn't going to necessarily look great, it affects you psychologically when you're posing for them. Like,
yes.
You're thinking, I know this isn't going to look as beautiful as it could, and I know that it could look a certain way, and I don't always know what the best way is to broach that subject and be like, hey, so this could be a really good image, but the way in which it's being composed, it's not going to be a very good image.
Yeah. You were doing photography before you even started modeling, so that gives an extra layer of, you know, like, I don't want to work for people who don't have an eye for, like, how they want to shoot something, you know?
Well, I think that's definitely affected a lot of things for me. Like, I was thinking about it the other day, and I've turned down a lot of work. Sometimes I'll see on a model's profile somewhere, but like, I work with every level of photographer, even beginners, and I would like to say that I can do that, but I've found that usually I don't want to work with someone right at the beginning of them doing photography anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I I'm not completely opposed to it. It really depends on the person. It depends on what their portfolio looks like in terms of landscapes or portraits of people they know. And if they seem to kind of know what they're doing, then I'm okay with it. But if it's just a brand new person who just has no idea, I typically will turn the shoot down.
Yeah. And that's totally understandable, you know. And I've definitely worked with people when it was their first time shooting a model, and in my experience, it's positive if they're coming at it from like a learning perspective where they're like, okay, I want your ideas to be injected, and they let you see the back of the camera, and they're like, how can this improve? I do like that. I'm not super worried about them posting horrible images of me as long as I'm directing, the angles and everything. But, you never
Yeah,
know. When somebody's new, you still never know.
that's true. If someone can take a lot of direction when they're new, that's fine. It's when it's like, oh, I've been photographing people for 20 years. It's like, but you've never photographed a professional model, which is fine, but you have an ego attached to this that's a little bit
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
And not wonder what you're about to post of me on the internet. And because unfortunately, that's the thing. If the internet didn't exist, this job would actually be a lot easier because you wouldn't have this worry. It's like you could take a shoot that might be like, oh, this isn't that good, but he's safe. But due to the fact that it's going to get posted all over the internet,
Yeah.
you can't just go work with any level.
Right. Not only is it going to be all over the internet, but they're going to invite you to be a collaborator on their posts, and then get upset if you don't accept it because it doesn't fit your vibe or whatever.
I hate that feature so much. I hate it so much because even if I'm going to post the photo at some point, I do not like the pressure of like, do it right now. But
Yeah.
and sometimes I'm looking at the photo and it's not that I have an issue with the photo. This happens to me a lot. It's like, I don't have an issue with this photo being out there. I don't have an issue with it being on your page. But in the context of my own work, sometimes I'll see something with my face I don't like, or I'll see like, I don't think that was, the most flattering angle of me, or I just don't think that I did very well in that photo myself. And then I don't want to post it. And it's not because of them or their photography. It's literally because I don't like what I did.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah. In fact, that's a lot of what it is now because I'm so careful about choosing who I shoot with anyway. It's usually because of me that I don't want to post the photo.
Yeah, because you're critical of your own self or your own modeling or what your expression was doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But how do you say that? I'd be like, no, it's me.
Yeah.
I don't like how I was holding my face.
Yeah.
My hand looks stupid.
Yeah, and for me, I even have another layer of this because, I accept shoots where the photographer is shooting a style that's not really like my thing, and I'm like, okay, I'm really good at these types of poses, so I'll do them because I know the photographer really likes those poses, so I feel like I'm working for them, like this is photos for them, like their portfolio, their social media, whatever. But then when they want me to post the photos too, I'm like, oh, I did those poses because I knew that you liked those poses.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's so many poses that are so standard and you see them all the time everywhere, like make triangles with your elbow, put your hand on your head or like your hand on your hip. There's just so many poses and I'm like, I've posted this same exact photo in different scenarios a cajillion times and I'm not doing it again. Yeah.
Or it's like, okay, how many S-curve photos can I possibly post on the internet?
Yeah.
How many?
Right.
Which is fine. I mean, sometimes they're even pretty photos. It's just not gonna work for me. And I actually had a really weird situation happen, kind of in this on this subject. I had this happen. I think it was in New York a couple years back, and this guy that I worked with, he was nice enough, and he got in touch with me and he was like, "Oh, I have the photos ready." I was like, "Okay," and he goes, "And I'm gonna send them to you so you can see them." And I was like, "Great, I would love to see them." And he said, "But are you gonna post them?" I was like, "Well, I haven't seen them yet. I don't know." And he goes, "Well, then," he's like, "Well, then what was the point of hiring you?" I was like, "Well, like, he's like, "Why did I pay you?" I'm like, "So that I would show up and work for 2 hours?" He's like, "Oh, well, what about like this?" It's like, that's not covered in the job. I'm very sorry, but it's not. The rate would be way higher if that was covered in the job. And he says, "Well, I'm not going to post them, because if I post them, then I'm just promoting you." And I didn't say it, but I was also thinking, well, to be fair, if I post them, I'm also just promoting me.
What the hell? No, that doesn't make any sense. What the hell?
I still find it sort of funny. I'm like, well, you're not really promoting me. You have basically no Instagram followers, and that's fine. That's fine. It's not all about followers. I think that's like a stupid metric anyway. But I found it to be a funny thing to say, and I said, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, bitch.
Yeah. And, a lot of photographers listen to this podcast. And for those of you listening who are like, you should post our photos. If you want a model that you're hiring to post the photos that you guys are going to do with the shoot, number one, say that in the very beginning so that when you're planning out the ideas, the model is like excited about contributing to it's a paid collaboration at that point, right? Like if you're hiring somebody and you want them to post that photo, the model doing the photos has to be creatively excited about the photos, and it has to be executed in a way that the model likes it. Otherwise, they're not going to post it, And you can't make somebody post something. You can't hire them and expect them to post it and then get mad when they don't. Like, that's what influencers are for. Like, you hire an influencer to, make a post for you so that promotes your social media. So,
I mean, I've taken photos of models I've been photographing models since 2015, about when I started modeling. And I don't care if they don't post my photos.
For sure. Because you're shooting it for you. It's your craft. And what they do with it shouldn't matter.
Yeah, I don't want to take photos that a model's going to hate, but if a model doesn't post the photos I take of them, if I liked it, I'm cool with it. It's like, well, I like the photo. Yeah, so that's good enough for me. And maybe that sounds like, I guess that maybe sounds like I don't care what they think. And I do care, but simultaneously, I'm taking the photo. I own the copyright of the photo. I can sell the photo. The photo is for me. The job is to model. I don't try to push any model beyond their limits. Actually, I think my limits are probably far more conservative than most of the models that I'm photographing. So, yeah, it just has never bothered me. I think it might be some sort of like insecurity thing, like a need for validation, which is fine. I think it's fine to want that sort of thing. I think that everybody sort of wants to be validated in some way.
Yeah.
So the things that they really care about doing. Like if I model and I post a photo, I'm going to keep a photo up a lot of the time, even if it gets basically no likes. This happens to me all the time when I post paintings. Nobody cares about paintings. I have found, but I'm still going to post them.
Yeah.
Like if I posted a photo of myself, I might get like 800 to 1,000 likes or something. If I post a painting, it's like 1 to 300.
Yeah.
People do not care about artwork, but I'm still going to post it. But if I post certain things, yeah, it's nice to get the likes, right? It is nice. Like that is probably part of posting, in addition to just for me having that kind of portfolio standing there at all times. So I understand why they want us to post the photos. It's like people want to be validated for the things they enjoy. I just don't think that it's a healthy expectation to constantly have. I think that you're going to be disappointed all the time if this is an expectation you have.
Also, other layer of that is people will hire models like myself or yourself, and on my end, on my Instagram, where people want me to be posting what we shot, they're hiring me and shooting nudes, and they're posting censored nudes and trying to get me to reshare the photo. And I'm like, I literally can't share that. Like, it'll get my account shut down again.
Yeah. I've never, knock on wood, I've never had my account banned or shut down, but I don't post nudity on my Instagram generally, like censored, whatever. Sometimes I will reshare something, but it really depends on what it is. I usually will not post nude work. I don't post any censored nude work to my main page. And because of this, I've actually had people get in touch with me and they're like, do you still shoot nudes? I'm like, yeah, but you do understand that you're not allowed to post those on here. I understand if you're getting away with posting them on here, but you're not allowed to post them on here.
Yeah. It's the same problem for me. If you look at my tagged photos, there's tons of censored and implied nudes. But I just can't post them. I don't care if somebody else posts them. I can't post them.
Yeah. I don't care if someone else does it. I'm not going to. What's also strange is like I have my website link. My website link is there and there's nudes on my website. But I guess people don't really click through to see that. Yeah. But also a lot of my shoots now are mainly portrait shoots and clothes. So I feel like maybe half of the shoots I do are nudes.
Wow.
I don't like, in terms of just full nude, like outdoor nude shooting and outdoor, like studio nudes, I feel like most of my shoots aren't that anymore. So
interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. And I wonder sometimes if it's because people think I don't really do them. I've had people during shoots be like, oh, are you okay with full frontal nudes? I'm like, yes. Like, just making sure. It's like, okay, that's nice. I mean, if I was totally shaved, maybe I wouldn't be okay with full frontal nudity, but I'm definitely not shaved, so.
Have you ever had the shave request?
When I was younger, quite a lot.
Yeah.
But it hasn't happened. I think having armpit hair is actually partly what gets you to the point where they're not even going to ask, because they're like, oh, this person is like so hairy, it's not happening. Whereas if you just have like, and especially like what kind of bush you have, I feel like if you have like a little triangle, like if you're like very manicured, I feel like they are more comfortable asking because, well, you shave some, right? So maybe you'll shave the whole thing. I don't know. But for me, it's not manicured and I have armpit hair, and you're just at that point, are you really going to ask?
Yeah.
I have had people though ask me, like I had this one, it was a female photographer actually. She got in touch with me. This was when I was younger. And she sent me a whole PDF file about all the rules of shooting with her after I decided to shoot with her. And one of them was like, you have to shave like your whole leg. I don't shave my whole legs. I only shave to my knees.
Yeah, who shaves their whole legs?
Well, apparently some people do. Apparently a lot of people do. Well, they probably have darker hair, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, mine's blonde, so for me it doesn't matter very much. So that's just pure luck. But she was like, you have to shave your armpits and you have to like closely trim your pubic hair. And I replied to her, I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And she goes, well, if you ever lose the pit hair, let me know. That was verbatim what she wrote.
Oh my God.
And then she sent me another email about 6 months later. She's like, yeah, if you ever shave, let me know. And I'm like, can you stop me?
Whoa, that is weird, especially coming from a female photographer.
I think I blocked her after that. I was like, yeah, you're really annoying. So,
What a weirdo. What the hell, man?
yeah, you have to be liberal with the block button.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The block button is self-care.
It will save you a whole lot of trouble in life just blocking people, even for, I don't block people for just anything, but if you say something weird or you just send me a really dumb shoot request or it's done. It's done. I'm sorry. You have to go. This is too much. I do not need this in my life.
Well, more power to you. I mean, that is, if you're not going to work together and they're just going to potentially continue to request things that you're not comfortable with, then what's the point,
I remember having this discussion with a few models years back where I said, just block people. And they were like, oh, no, like, you can't do that. And I think that has shifted, that idea of like, oh, you can't just block someone. I think it's shifted over the last few years where a lot of people I know now they just block for the slightest infraction.
Yeah. Since the pandemic.
Yeah. It's not worth it most of the time. Or another thing I've noticed is that I think should come to an end with models is when someone does something really weird or says something really rude to you, don't send a full paragraph of information explaining. Just delete it or block.
Yeah.
Just don't go there. Don't waste your time. You could be having a cup of coffee or doing a puzzle. You don't need to send 4 paragraphs of information to someone telling them exactly how they disrespected you.
That is truly good advice.
Like, oh, he's undercutting my rates. Let me explain to him why I charge what I charge. No, just delete that.
Right. You can't explain somebody into respecting you.
Right.
That is seriously good advice.
She's like, no, I'm not writing this. I would suggest that in a lot of areas of life, actually. It's like I've had girls ask me, how do I respond to this guy that I've been dating? You just don't. Just you just don't. You just ignore that. You don't respond to that at all if it's stupid enough.
Word. I'm for it. I have another question that I want to ask that I also ask everybody on the show. I call it the rising phoenix era of your life. Can you describe a situation, and it could be related to your modeling or not, just depending on what you want to talk about, where you were faced with some kind of a challenge that you had to overcome?
I feel like right now I'm sort of trying to get a normal job again, which sounds like such a simple, silly thing, but it's something I care a lot about, to finally have a job with a 401k and benefits. And I think that I don't know exactly how difficult this is going to end up being. My goal is to have one by August.
Okay.
And I feel like it feels sort of insurmountable to me. At the same time, it doesn't. But I think that's going to be it for me, is finally being like, okay, like finally figuring out a career that I can devote maybe 20 to 30 years to, even if at some point I go part-time, like if I get married and have kids or something. But that's one thing. Like, I've been thinking about this for 5 years.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go get a normal job. I'm going to get a normal job. And I want it to be a pretty good job. And fortunately, I did go to college. But yeah, I feel like I'm in a position where, like, back when I started modeling in 2015, I sort of felt like this a little bit just because of the monetary aspect of where I was prior and starting to do this. And now I kind of feel like I'm in that situation now with this, where, I mean, maybe it sounds bad to say, but it just doesn't feel like enough to me anymore. Like, I still like modeling, but it doesn't feel fulfilling in the same way for about the past 5 years.
Wow.
And I'm kind of just getting myself together enough to make the next step. I felt sort of like unsure about it for about 5 years, and I'm finally getting it together, figuring out what I'm going to do and how to make that happen. And because this job felt different. It felt like this is a job that I think that you can, not that you don't have to work hard at doing this job, but like you can fall into this line of work. You can sort of like happen upon it, where it felt like that for me, where it didn't feel like I had to exert very much effort.
Yeah.
I think that I benefited a lot just because, I have no tattoos. I have red hair. There are a lot of things about me that don't look like other people. So you can sort of occupy your own niche and sort of coast on that, to be honest. And you don't have to do as much to market yourself if no one else looks like you.
Yeah. Naturally had people wanting to shoot you without even advertising yourself, and you just decided to turn that into a business. Like a lot of us.
Right. Where, to go and get a normal job feels more like, you have to have a resume and a CV and all these things and potentially write cover letters and all this sort of thing that I'm like, okay, it feels a lot different. And it's something that I've just been sort of mentally coming around to.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, I had this job so that I was never in a position where I have to do something that I really dislike. But yeah, I think that's going to be it. Strangely, I've never had some huge insurmountable thing that it felt like I couldn't overcome, oddly enough. But I think I've been for the most part in my life, I've been pretty cautious about my life choices. For the most part. In fact, I think the weirdest life choice I've ever made is probably this job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, like, in all other areas of my life, generally speaking, it's pretty, I don't know, what do they call that? Like slow life strategy or something. It's just, I don't tend to take gigantic risks in my life, but I also don't tend to have those moments where I'm just like burning out or something.
Yeah, and that's probably a healthy way to go about things, unless some people need to make an extreme change at times. I find myself doing that to myself once every 4 to 7 years, actually. So it's not for everybody, and I wouldn't always recommend it. But so, do you know what kind of a job you're looking for?
I'm thinking like research roles at companies, or I thought about technical writing, or going back to some sort of librarian work, like what I was doing before.
Oh, cool. Something mellow.
Yeah, something that's a little bit like I can go somewhere every day, come back home. I would be okay with working remote too, but it might be nice to do hybrid, or in office. I don't know.
Yeah.
I kind of used to like going into the office, which it might be like a weird thing to say. I didn't mind it so much.
The one thing about having a regular job over being a freelance model is that if you had a job in an office, for example, when you clock out, you're not thinking about work anymore. But when you're a freelancer, you don't clock out. There's no clocking out.
There's no clocking out. I mean, there's certain benefits to that too, right? You don't have to listen to anyone else. You're not getting bossed around. You're not whatever.
Exactly.
But I think you actually do way more work. I found this when I was in my grad student degree. I decided to do it remote. This was back when that was kind of a brand new thing. I was at Rutgers and I was doing my graduate degree remote because I had a job working in Columbus, Ohio in an academic setting, and I wanted to keep my job and go to school. But what I found was that you do so much more work doing it online. It would be so much less work to just go to school because your participation grade is literally sitting there and then leaving. Where if you're just oh no, I'm going to do this on my own, whatever, it's you're writing paragraphs of information every day to participate. And I kind of think that way about freelance because I think a lot of people see our rates as models and we're like, oh, she gets paid $150 an hour. And it's yeah, but I'm not working 40 hours a week.
Right.
I wish
That's for a 2-hour shoot, you know?
Yeah, it's like I wish I was working 40 hours a week at $150 an hour.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
that would be great.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. I mean, they think that our rates are ridiculous, but if you break it down, the amount of time that we're spending doing everything else that's not modeling, that's related to our modeling, we're making like minimum wage, you know?
Right, which then I'm like, okay, then why don't I just go work there? Like, I'm not going to do that. But I thought about this recently because I work at art schools as well. Like, I would say I do more work for art schools and painters than I do for photographers. And it's been that way since about 2018. But I swear, like, they pay 25 to 30 an hour in Seattle for this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 3 hours at a time. And I'm like, okay, the minimum wage in Seattle is $19.97 an hour. Why am I a student? Sometimes I'll sit there in the art class and just like staring at some spot on the floor thinking, am I a stupid person? Like, this feels like a scam.
Yeah, everybody's sitting in a circle, drawing you naked, and you have to like, you know, tweak your body out holding this pose.
Yeah, and I could get paid working at Whole Foods. Like, this feels like a scam. This feels like a scam, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know why they pay art models for classes so low, but it's the main reason I almost never do it. I've only done it like maybe 3 times ever the whole time that I've been modeling.
Yeah, the reason I've done it is because it's so consistent. It's just consistent money. And you don't have to like go out and find it. They find you. So it is much less work on the back end in terms of scheduling and all that. And, you know, it's consistent. They're not going to cancel on you. You're getting paid through an institution. Like, you know, that money's coming in. Although I say that and I'm currently owed like $500.
Oh my God.
By like 2 different art schools in the area. So I say that and then I'm like, oh, but they don't know how to like automate their computer system to print my check, I guess.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so that's always fun. But like overall, especially in the New York area, it was just very regular money that came in. It's very safe. You know, if they do anything weird, you can go and report them. But yeah, the money's terrible. I mean, money's terrible, and you'd be better off working at Starbucks half the time. And that's a weird thing to say, but I think that it's funny because a lot of artists will constantly complain to me about like, oh, it's so difficult to find models. It's like, how do we get more models? And I remember saying to one institution, I was like, well, you could just pay more. Literally money. And they go, well, we did put snacks in the break room. I was like, am I living in a joke?
Oh my God.
And also the snacks weren't even good. I went and looked at them. And I was like, okay, those aren't even good snacks.
You got pretzels or something.
I was like chewy granola bars or something. Maybe I shouldn't. I'm not going to say the brand, but I was like, these are like $2 for a box.
Yeah.
Not impressed. Not impressed. And, you know, they probably had those apples, you know, the red delicious apples. I was like, those aren't even the good apples. How dare you? Or even the good apples. So you need to have Honeycrisp in there if you're going to do this to me.
With your future like plan to move into like legit job, are you concerned about like having fulfillment in that?
No, I am not. But I think that I was always a little bit confused how I ended up doing this. Like, I'm not confused how I ended up doing this, you know, from the aspect of like this happened and then this happened and then this happened and I made these choices. But I was always kind of shocked that people wanted to hire me for this. And I was talking to a friend of mine recently, Erica J in New York, and we were joking about how funny it is. Like, what if I had just been like a little bit uglier and then no one had hired me? Where would I be in life right now?
Oh my God.
Like, maybe I would have been better off if I was like just a little uglier, like just something weird about me so that nobody really wanted to hire me. And then maybe I would be like working in academic libraries at the moment.
Maybe you'd be wishing that you could model because the grass is always greener on the other side, right? Like right now you're modeling and you want to go back into like a normal career.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the thing. It's like you're going to think that. But there is a part of me that always sort of was surprised that people were going to hire me for this. So I think I kind of never expected to be doing this. And it's always still been like, this is interesting. Why is this happening?
It's true. And a lot of people that I've had on the podcast, I would say maybe half of the people on the podcast got into full-time modeling because they were in a college class that was either involving photography or they needed a model for the sketch class. And they started, being depicted or photographed. And then more people were like, oh, you're willing to be photographed? Like, let me photograph you. And then, they've got a portfolio all of a sudden. Now it's their job. And a lot of people on the show, that's how they fell into it. But it seems like if you're willing to be in front of somebody's camera and you're more or less conventionally attractive, like you could make a full-time income.
Mm-hmm. It does seem like that. And I think it seemed like a big part of it also was like, I remember when I first started this and it was such a huge deal to not have any tattoos. Especially where I was in Ohio. And I think for some reason, like a lot of girls in the Midwest had tattoos. I don't know, but I remember so many people would hire me specifically because of that.
Right on. Yeah.
And it's, I know that people have different opinions about that, but just that alone got me a lot of work over the years. And I don't know, like, I think it does end up being a thing that you sort of fall into. I think a lot of us didn't even realize this was a job until we started doing it. And that's kind of how I was. I was like, wait, what is this? And I always kind of felt more fulfilled by, I guess, like I read a lot. I went to school. I was in school for like 7 years and I enjoyed it. And I think I actually am more fulfilled by work that involves, I guess, our job involves a lot of thinking as well, but I feel more fulfilled by that type of stuff by being paid potentially based on my intelligence as opposed to my physical appearance. Like, also it's like nice to be pretty,
right?
Or to be considered like pretty by a number of people. Like that's always, that's not a bad thing.
But over time,
as I get older, it's a little like, oh, okay.
You want to bring value to the world that's more than just your physical appearance.
Yeah, and I mean, I tend to be the kind of person, too, though, where I think I like beautiful things, going out in public and seeing really, like, I'm very straight, but I do like to see, like, women who are very pretty and they're dressed well. It's like, I think that's a nice thing, just existing in the world. Like, that's a nice thing to see, like, but there are other things that I can do, and I think at a certain point I should do that because especially as I get older, I understand that you can model when you're older and, people are beautiful at all ages, but it gets harder. It does get harder to do this job as you get older, especially the traveling aspect. And it's not something I would ever encourage someone to do. I would not encourage someone to do this job full time into their 40s. Even though I know that some people do, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it, I think it's going to wear on you a lot more as you get older. Like being cramped in an airplane seat doesn't get better the more you do it.
True that. And you're even small, and so that coming from you, that means a lot.
I do not understand how normal sized people are in airplanes these days. And I know those seats got smaller because I am very small. And I used to be able to lay the full top half of my body down on the tray.
Oh my God.
I used to be able to lay on it, comfortably lay on it. And I would just lay on there and take my little nap. I can't do that anymore. Like my head is smashed. I'm like, I know that you move these seats. I have not gotten taller.
Yeah. This This exact situation just happened to me on an airplane. And if the person in front of you shifts their weight around, then that seat smashes into the top of your head.
I know. I'm like, no, you guys have made these smaller. If I'm 4'11" and I feel uncomfortable, this is absolutely awful.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. It makes me want to drive more instead of fly. But
And I hate driving.
yeah.
I would like high-speed trains. That would be great. We're never going to get them, but
Yeah.
and if we did get them in this country, it would probably be like, that will be $2,000.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But I did like that on the East Coast. That was always a really great thing, is that I could take Amtrak, and I loved taking Amtrak. You can go get, like, I would just go and get like a Shake Shack burger and, like a couple like little glasses of wine and go on the train. And it was great. So good.
Yeah. But in the end,
comfy.
In summary, modeling into your older years, like I'm even feeling it now. There's some poses that I do that like I didn't notice that feeling in my body 5 years ago, like it does happen. I know that there are lots of models that do it full time, even older than me.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like anything, I'm sure that that's the case with anything in life though. But being a model is very physically strenuous, and more like physical stuff that you can do posing wise, the more successful you're going to be. So like how long do you want to be exerting your body, I suppose?
Yeah. And also I think your tolerance for garbage goes down as a woman the older you get.
Yeah.
And that it's not helpful for us in this career. Like I feel like you'll make the most money if you have a really high tolerance.
Yeah. That's true.
Stuff you've ever heard.
Your dignity is for sale.
Yeah, or also I think it's part, like sometimes I see these videos. I remember seeing this video a girl made one time for her Patreon in my apartment. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's fine. And because she wanted to film it in there. Okay. And I remember seeing the video, and it was like very cutesy and very like giggly and like just basically grabbing her boobs and talking about her day. I was sort of floored by it. I was like, really? People pay for this? But then I went, of course they do. Of course they pay for that. But I was like, can you realistically do this at age 40?
I don't know.
But it's like, it's giggly and like, hee hee, I don't know what's going on. I'm just such a dumb girl. Here's what I did today. I went shopping. You're like, can you do that when you're 40 years old? Like, can you actually suspend your own disbelief about your station in life to make a video where you're acting like an 18-year-old bimbo? I don't know if you, like, without cracking a serious laugh or being like, this is real.
Yeah, I think that it definitely is being done a lot, I think. So to answer your question, yeah, it is. You got to put on the show,
Well, I don't know what I'm talking about.
I mean, yeah. So, I mean, I have cheeky videos. I'm almost 37, and it is like that. And when I'm making stuff like, I mean, I don't do it like as often as I used to, but when I have done content like that, I'm just like, I'm thinking about the mind of the person who's really, really, really into this. They want to see your face, they want to see you smile, and they want to they want it to be cheeky. And for part of me thinks it's like a lot of these guys that are buying this content they have like really serious issues where their inner child is seriously depressed, or like they didn't, they weren't listened to by their mom when they were a kid. So having a female being all bright and happy like lifts their spirits subconsciously, and they don't know what it is, but I think I know what it is,
Yeah. I think the mommy issues thing is a way bigger deal than people will ever give it credit for. I think that mommy issues might be worse than daddy issues.
I think they are. I think it's projecting when guys are saying, shit about women having daddy issues. I think it's because they're not allowed to address their mommy issues, so they'll point the finger, right?
Yeah. That's like, Yeah, I'm probably totally wrong about the smiley videos. But then again, it's like I don't even agree to smile on camera,
Right.
ever. So
It's a different planet for sure.
yeah,
It's a different planet. And it is baffling because you think that like there's people that are buying this that probably are like grown-ass adults with like kids and maybe even grandkids that have like a legitimate career, and this is what they're spending their money on, you know. And I've made videos like that knowing like this is ridiculous, but people are buying it.
oh yeah, because I remember sitting there. I was like, well, who would ever buy this? And I think I talked to the girl later and found out how much money she was making off of this stuff. And I was just like, this was one of my moments where I was like, wow, I'm really a stupid person.
You're not stupid. It's just, you know, it's a whole other world. There's a lot of lonely people out there, and their only like sense of interaction is over the internet sometimes. There's a lot of people like that, and they like that. That's what they like. So, you know, like
I think I've been very fortunate in life to not have a lot of loneliness issues. I think like my family, like we're all on good terms, and
great.
like, yeah, I have friends that I talk to very regularly, and I've never had oddly, I don't have problems dating. Like, I feel like a lot of girls in this job have problems dating. I don't have issues dating, and I think that that's fortunate. I don't even think I have very good social skills. So that's always been like very strange. I'm like, huh, okay. But yeah, I mean, that must be what it is. Because I saw this stat online the other day, because I know that like the OnlyFans stuff, and I feel like a lot of this stuff is probably on OnlyFans, and I've never had OnlyFans, but I see a lot of stuff being like men freaking out online, mostly about how many women do OnlyFans, how many, and I saw this thing the other day that said about 2 million women do OnlyFans, 82 million men subscribe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like this might be projection, sir. Like, I think that like you're yelling at women, but actually, the supply of women on there might be too low, considering how many men are on there.
Yeah. I mean, and a lot of OnlyFans stuff is just, I mean, a lot of it's porn, but like websites like Pornhub and stuff, the stuff that makes the more money is the stuff that's the more extreme. But stuff like OnlyFans is just your fans from Instagram, they get to see you naked and maybe more. And it doesn't necessarily have to be this whole like, oh, we have to make it more intense, like bring in the gangbang, come on. Like,
I do think that the OnlyFans phenomenon is because I don't think it would be as big as it is if people weren't lonely, though. I think people are very like unfulfilled in their intimate relationships, and it's sort of a proxy source, and it's fake, but
yeah.
and I think they know it's fake. I hope they know it's fake, because that would be really sad. But then I see these videos from like Japan where they have the fake AI girlfriend apps, and they're talking to, and I'm like, well, I mean, it's kind of like that, and I don't fully understand it, but then I'm like, I don't understand this probably like because I have real human connection on a daily basis. So, like I'm probably, maybe I'm lucky, like judging from how common this problem seems to be right now in society. I think COVID didn't help. I think that all of that made it worse. I think we were kind of already headed in that direction, but it's sad. Like, I can't imagine, like, my brother, like, would not pay for something like that. Like, I think he's like, this is confusing. I'm like, they're really lonely. Like, that's why they're paying to watch a girl laugh and touch her boobs.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's worse things on the internet that people could be watching, so,
Sure. I remember back when Tumblr was a big thing. I maybe I was like one of the only people who was super happy that Tumblr went down the tubes.
Oh.
But I remember seeing some of the most rancid content of my life on that platform, so I just couldn't be that sad.
Yeah.
And it would just be inadvertent. Like, you'd just be scrolling through the feed and see the worst thing you've ever seen in your life.
I like that Twitter is like that for me right now. I've seen the worst. Yeah. Oh my God. I saw I've got to wrap up the podcast soon, but anyway, like Twitter. I don't think there's any rules at all. I saw a chick, pants down, ass out, butthole showing, taking a shit out of her ass, and like from beginning to end. And I was like, what is this is allowed on Twitter? Like, what the fuck?
I don't know if it is. You know, I have my Twitter settings like really locked down. I mute a lot of stuff. I block a lot of keywords. So I think but if you do like OnlyFans and stuff, you can't really like mute every word. But for me, I have like over 200 muted words.
I'm not very good at Twitter. I'm not on there that much, so I haven't fine-tuned anything on there. Like I have a bunch of crap on my page.
Yeah, you can mute certain words and it will mostly filter out those posts, thankfully.
Oh,
but I also found that was what I saw on Tumblr too. It was like a pooping video and I was like, listen, like
give me a break, you know. First of all, if you're selling this shit, you should be selling it. If you just posted it for free, why would it even, like, I don't know. I feel like they gave the money shot away for free if that's what the money shot is, you know?
Yeah, but also it could just be some random guy who like posted it, unless it was the girl who posted it of herself.
So the one that I saw, it was definitely the girl posting it herself because I was like shocked. So I went to this person's page and it was her talking about her life, taking shits, videos of her shooting. That was her whole page.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you know, are you even allowed to post that stuff on a porn site? Like, it seems
a lot of them you're not.
Yeah, like I would think that would hit. What is this? Like, I understand, like, you know, people have the idea, I think, like porn is free speech, and I think that there's a lot of arguments to be made in both directions regarding that. But that does seem like very obscene.
Yeah,
like we do have obscenity laws, and there's something about someone just full on defecating macro version at the camera.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a bit too far.
Yeah, maybe you're not legally allowed to monetize it, but maybe you're allowed to post it for free on Twitter. I don't know. Maybe that's her loophole. Maybe she's getting tips from people in her DMs. I don't know, man.
The people loophole.
And on that note, I do gotta go. I'm so glad. Okay, that's not the moral of the story of the podcast. I'm happy that we had this conversation. I'm glad that we got to talk. I've never spoken to you on the phone before, so I feel like I got to know you throughout this podcast.
I'm happy that we did it too. I'm happy that I was like,